Hello my Whittle friends, and welcome back to Woodcrafter's Corner. In today's video we're going to be carving this giraffe, and as you can see I've cut out quite a bit of it already, and actually you can see that in another video I did. I used a coping saw, basically just clamp it down and go around this outline, which I got from a book called Whittling in Your Free Time, by the way, and that's by Tom Hines. I'll leave a link to that in the description. It's got a lot of great projects like this, super easy for beginners. But with that, let's just get started. So obviously I already have a lot cut out here, but we're just going to come in and add some of the finer details, if you will. So this is going to be very straightforward, and it's going to be in the flat plane style, which means basically you leave your knife marks visible without smoothing them out, which is a kind of a cool style all on its own. And finally, you can see that there's just a little bit of space here on the sides, or around the perimeter here of the outline, that we're gonna kind of clean up a little bit. Now the size of this means that it's going to be a little bit brittle, especially when we start working with the legs here. In fact, I've already broken off one of the feet here and already had to glue it back on, which you might have seen me do in another video. But we especially are going to have to take care around the head. So I'll quit mentioning that now because I tend to repeat that information maybe a little too often, I think. But bottom line, whenever we're carving near the head or the neck or the legs here that could easily snap off, just take great care to provide counter support with a finger, or just work at it at these angles preferred to this one. So that's pretty much it. Let's get started. First, we're just going to clean this up here a bit. And this is just going to be a quick little project, because once you have it cut out, it's pretty much just adding whatever detail you want, and then kind of adding some character, if you will. Like right here, where I'm adding this hump, if you will, to signify the back, basically. That's all I'm really doing. And then we'll add the flat plane details, which is super easy. Alright, so at this point this is coming together pretty well, so let's move on, and we're gonna basically flesh out the tail here. So this is gonna be a very thin little piece, so we have to be extremely careful here. But as I said, I'm not gonna retread that information, but we're gonna make a cut here, just kind of where the tail might come off of the body. And it's gonna be a gentle rocking kind of cut, because this will split apart extremely easily at some point. So that's basically what we're looking for there. Come in maybe a little bit further. And that's just what we need to do to separate it out here. And then we need to continue to go inward. And then we'll just do the same thing on the other side here. Alright, that's probably good for now. Now let's move on, and we're going to do a very similar thing to the head. So we can take out some more. I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to take some more out from the body here, just this entire plane and maybe a little bit on the other side. I want to make this just a little bit narrower, so that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to lose our outline, but that's okay because we're pretty much done with it. We just, at this point, follow the cuts. Alright, so here's what we're left with. We've kind of thinned out the body, kind of thinned out towards the neck and the head here. So the next step is to make a couple of marks here, kind of where we imagine the end of the head being. And we do have to be very careful using a gentle rocking motion. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side here, just kind of lining it up a bit. Again, very gentle because, and also supporting with this finger as we do it, never like this, because that'll definitely break it off. And then the next step is to kind of thin out the head just a little bit. So now that we have these basically stop cut marks, we will make a, you guessed it, stop cut. And to do that, we can start anywhere really. We can start up here. If we go very slowly, we can take out an entire sliver like that. And that's pretty good. But if you want to be a little more controlled, start a little bit closer and just start making sweeping cuts like this, and that's a lot safer. And it helps to do kind of a, instead of a straight down, a sliding motion like that. So that way it's just less pressure you have to exert. And basically what we're doing right now is just getting a feel for how wide we want the head to be. And so you can really choose this part, but obviously we can't change this too much later, so don't take off too much and regret it. That regret will last you a lifetime. There we are. And I think that's pretty much good for me. We might even it out just a bit, but I think for our purposes, that's about as good as I want it. Now what that does for us is it lets us just visualize the ultimate of where we want the head to be, and so that way we can just make the body line up to that. So we can thin out the neck now, but instead of making a big cut like we did up here, we're just smoothing things out a bit. So basically we want this notch gone now. But don't worry about cleaning that up too much, because a little bit of a notch there can give it a little bit of a character. Plus, when we come back in and add some more details, like the flat plane cuts, we'll probably end up adding a kind of jawline there. So don't stress. That's the whole point of whittling, isn't it? To not stress. Alright, so this is where you pretty much get to do whatever you want. We've done almost everything that we need to actually get the shape of the giraffe looking pretty well standard. So if you wanted to come in and make the adjustments like I'm making here, just look at it and see what you think looks good. So for me, that might mean thinning out the body a little bit more, but if you like the look, just leave it. I stress that because you don't need to worry about making it look exactly like this or anything. The beauty of even using a pattern is that you can make it your own. And that's good. All right. Next step we're going to do is to work on the head here. So now that we've thinned it out, we want to define the ears for one thing, and then also the, I don't know what you call it, the muzzle or something. Is it a muzzle when it's on a giraffe? I don't know. So I'm just narrowing that up a little bit. Not much. Alright, and then the next step will be, you can use a pencil for this if you want, but we're gonna want the ears to be high up here, of course. So we're gonna make a cut there, and then let's maybe make another one right here. Now this is where we have to be just extremely careful. So we're gonna use a gentle, as we've done, rocking motion. I'm barely pressing in, choosing to let this take some time rather than rush through it, because we will take off this whole head if we're not careful. And then using a sliding motion, because we're working against the grain, I'll simply cut into that. Like that. So that's the first cut. Didn't do a whole lot, that's okay. Rocking. It's all about creating pressure just at the blade level, not the handle. Not using your hand to press downward, but letting just physics do its thing. I don't know if I'm trying to sound smart or what, but I don't think it's working. That's all right. And there we go, that's looking good. You can see what we've got. A couple of ears. That's the whole goal here, so it's great that it's starting to look like it. And that looks good to me. We don't want to go crazy here and take off too much. Now we're going to do the exact same thing down here.
that we got kind of a baseline down, I'm going to make it just a little bit deeper. So that'll mean that I should actually start here. There we go. A little deeper. I'm going to make both deeper, so that's why I'm kind of starting on this one. So now, there we go. Make it less fragile as we work. Sometimes there's just this little bit here that won't come off, even though I feel like it should.
If you get this book, Whittling in your free time, great for beginners, by the way. I'll leave a link to that. I think I already mentioned that, but then it's going to be really nice to be able to print that pattern. And you can make it bigger than I made mine. Just adjust your printer settings. But I like to carve on these smaller blocks. But that does make these little tricky parts, especially at the top of the grain, very difficult. Or at least require some special finesse. There we go. Look at that. That's looking good. So let's continue on our trend of shaping up the head, and let's give this guy a bit of a jawline here. To do that, we're gonna do a mark here towards the nose, moving backwards, again, very carefully. Cut that out. Do it again. Cut it out. And maybe one more time. Okay, and then we're gonna basically just cut off this corner part. Whoop. Just to round it out a bit. Yeah, kind of like that. So that gives it a little bit of something, and then finally, being very careful, we're gonna go up the plane of the neck here, maybe cut it inwards a little bit. And make a kind of V cut here to give that a better angle. It's not a science, it's a journey. I could coin that saying, but I don't think it'll catch on because it doesn't make any sense. We'll do this. That sliding motion really helps on these tricky areas here. All right, that's looking like what I wanted. Basic, but effective. The best kind. All right, so there's the head pretty much done, except I think I will take off just a little bit of this sharp brow here. All right, looking great. We're ready for the next step, and that is to make the flat plane details. So in the previous couple of videos I've done a couple of marks like this, which will show you where to cut, and that can be helpful, especially if you haven't done this before. But I don't think I'll do that for this one, because I find that it's easier to make those on the fly, those cuts, rather than going based on some markings. So basically anywhere, for example here, where there's kind of two angles coming together, you're gonna make a cut, small one, use a different knife like this, pressing in carefully, but that's gonna be a stop cut. And then you're just gonna sweep up along both angles and meet in the center. So that's a small one, but let's do a slightly bigger one here. Sweep up, and there you go. And what that does is it kind of rounds, it pulls double duty, rounds out the edges here, but it also gives it this really interesting character that I really like. So where there's something kind of less of an angle where 2 points don't come together, you can just sweep along like this. You can come from two different angles like this, especially if you're making it deeper like that, then you got to be careful. And yeah, basically just do it wherever you want. Mainly the main points are going to be along the edges and spots like this. So here's another example. Do a couple here real quick. And you can also thin out the legs a bit while you're doing this, now that we have less concern for them. And then it'll come in like this. And it helps if you kind of lay the knife closer to the body like this instead of like this, because then you can kind of give the appearance of a deeper cut without essentially ruining the structural integrity of your giraffe, which on a giraffe this size is easy to do. So you can see what's going on here, so I'm just going to keep doing that, and you just do it wherever you want. Have fun with it. Alright, so here's what we're left with. There's only a couple of things left to do, and that is to separate the ears. And for that we have to be extremely careful, but we're just basically making a V shape here. Coming in at 2 angles. And that's pretty much it. And then just kind of evening them out here on either side. Okay, so that's done. And then the other thing is to, if you want, this is an optional step, but you can separate these legs out just a little bit by making essentially a similar cut on a much wider scale. Again, having to be very careful, support the feet here with your fingers on the back end. And just make a narrow cut here. And you could just leave it on the feet as well and not do the rest of the legs. Totally up to you. And that's about it, really. It's just more about giving the impression that there's a separation there. And because I don't want to fly too close to the sun here and break anything off, that's about all that I'll do. Gets the point across. That's good enough. Alright, at this point the giraffe is done. That's pretty much it. If you prefer the unfinished look, which a lot of the times I do, and to me this looks pretty good, then you're done. Otherwise you can stick around because I will be painting this now and making it look even more like a giraffe than it already does. Already it's a striking image, but you can always improve, so let's do that. Alright, so for the painting phase, just like I did in a previous video, I'll be using this kit I got from Amazon. I like this one because it's simple, there's not a lot in here, I don't do a lot of painting, and for something with just a few colors, then this is really handy. It also comes with some brushes, so I'll leave a link to that. Here's one I did previously with the same paint set, but unlike that one, I think I'm going to have to mix some colors. The closest ones I found for giraffe colors are the brown here, which I'll use for the spots, possibly the eyes. The yellowish and brownish I think I'm going to have to mix to make the skin color, and then also white, which I'll just use for a little amount for the eyes. So let's try this first. And I do think I'm going to mix that. So basically, if you have this set, I'm using the lemon yellow with the burnt sienna. I'm going to mix those just a little bit and we'll get to painting. Alright, now that that's had time to dry, it's time for the finishing touch, which are the eyes, of course. Getting a very tiny bit here of white and just putting it right at that little area. And then one final piece. And there we have it, our giraffe is done. And now we are starting our way to a barnyard of a giraffe and an extremely large chicken, or a small giraffe, not sure which. If you like this video, be sure to leave it a thumbs up, it helps out a ton. And until then, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.